Hello, and welcome to everything you need to know about Wacom MobileStudio Pro. This is a full-on Windows 10 computer you can draw on, and a successor to the Cintiq Companion and Cintiq Companion 2. Now, Wacom has made quite a lot of improvements, and I'll also be doing an in-depth review, but until then I thought I'd try and answer as many of your questions as possible in case you're trying to decide whether to buy one early. Now first of all, let's attack the elephant in the room, which is fan noise. This is definitely the biggest concern for most people because Wacom's previous Cintiq Companion 2 tablet was not only loud, but also apparently quite high-pitched. Fortunately, the MobileStudio Pro is dead silent when idle, and sometimes rises to the volume of a quiet external hard drive when drawing in a program such as Clip Studio Paint, though most of the time I found it was even quieter. I also tried pushing the fans a little bit harder by installing ZBrush and increasing the number of polygons, but again, it never really got that much louder than maybe, again, an external hard drive. Just as an extra test, I also tried loading a large number of YouTube videos in various windows in Google Chrome, and watching them all at the same time, I still didn't see the fan volume rising much at all, so that was really good.
Alright, so this is normal volume, and this is what you're hearing now. Tap, tap.
MobileStudio Pro uses something called etched glass rather than the pre-installed screen protector that used to come on the old Cintiq 13 HD. On the new etched glass, it feels more textured and a bit more like paper, but not quite as rough as that. I think it felt pretty good. In terms of build quality, the whole device has a very reassuring weight to it, and it has enough aluminium on it to make it feel cool to the touch. I haven't dropped it yet and certainly don't plan to, but I get the feeling that it's quite sturdy. The only shame really is that there's no hard cover to protect the screen the way that maybe, say, a laptop would. Most of the Cintiq Companion models actually came with a dedicated Wacom carry case, but that is no longer included. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, Wacom no longer provides the terribly designed piece of rubbish 3-position stand that came with the Cintiq 13 HD or the Cintiq Companion tablets. The old stand was a real engineering tragedy, but you still need it to use the MobileStudio Pro at various angles, and so to add salt to injury, you can now pay extra for it. So yeah, thanks for nothing, Wacom. Wacom plans to release an adapter called Wacom Link, which will connect to the MobileStudio Pro via USB-C. You then connect the Wacom Link to your choice of Mac or PC using mini DisplayPort and standard USB. It wasn't available at launch though, so again, thanks for nothing, Wacom. Unfortunately, opening the device would void the warranty, so I don't know if you can replace the hard drive with a larger SSD, but if you just need to store files somewhere, then you can put a cheap SD card in the SD card slot and just leave it there permanently. I highly recommend this if you're trying to decide between the 128GB and 256GB models, because an SD card will cost you much less than the premium it costs to buy the higher model tablet. And since the SD card sits flush with the device when inserted, you don't really have to worry about damaging it or the SD card slot when you accidentally give it a knock. I'm pretty sure that the screen is quite a bit clearer than the Cintiq 13 HD, but I can't quite remember because I've actually sold my Cintiq 13 HD in order to buy the MobileStudio Pro. Also, keep in mind that now it runs at QHD resolution, a bit like the Cintiq Companion 2, and doesn't come with a screen protector pre-installed, so of course you can make sure that you choose a screen protector that doesn't add any extra blur to the screen. If you record the cursor lag with a slow motion camera, then yes, you can see that there is lag, but when using the tablet but to actually draw, it's really unnoticeable, or at least in my case, it was unnoticeable. If you compare it to an iPad Pro in slow motion, I think you can tell that the iPad Pro has quite a bit less lag, but in practice, my human eyes couldn't really tell the difference. Parallax was never a big issue for me on the Cintiq 13 HD because I used to draw while looking at the hover cursor, but after drawing for a while on the MobileStudio Pro, I only realized later, after drawing for a while, that I'd been using the size cursor and not the position cursor. So I think that's a testament to how much you can actually rely on the plastic tip to give you an accurate position of the cursor. Personally, I don't draw anywhere near the edge of the screen, so it was never really a big problem for me, but accessing menus and file menus was indeed a problem on the Cintiq 13 HD. On MobileStudio Pro, the hover cursor is still a little inaccurate, but as you bring the pen closer to the screen, the cursor slides over to the correct position, and the click occurs where the actual tip of the pen is. So I think that's a definite improvement. I'm not sure how effective touch and pen use was on the Cintiq Companion, but on the MobileStudio Pro you can have the pen tip near the screen and still rotate or move the canvas with your other hand. I also tested this with my palm resting on the screen and it still worked. When comparing the Pro Pen 2 to the original Pro Pen 1, I didn't really use a lot of large brushes, so I can't say much about the heavy ends of the spectrum, but I personally found that the high pressure sensitivity was really helpful when making very light strokes. Even with a large brush size, I could stroke very lightly and make thin lines without having to adjust my brush settings first. Having that extra granularity will probably save you a lot of time in the long run, especially if you do a lot of painting or coloring and don't want to waste time reducing the brush size just to color in the smaller areas. I haven't had the device long enough to really gauge exactly how long the battery life is, but realistically I'd say that Wacom's estimation of 6 hours maximum for the 13-inch is accurate if you're not doing anything too taxing. You'll easily get through a long work session at a cafe, but if you bring it to work in the morning, expect to be recharging it by early to mid-afternoon, I think. Now, I wasn't actually aware of this before, but you can go into the settings and change the sensitivity of the touch ring so that it doesn't drastically zoom in when you just try and touch it a little bit. So I'm actually quite happy about that, but personally, I probably won't be using the touch ring very much. Compared to the iPad Pro and Apple Pencil, using Apple Pencil is very immediate and natural. Having a hard tip that doesn't retract makes it feel like a ballpoint pen or indeed a pencil. You'll feel right at home even if you've never drawn before. Whereas the MobileStudio Pro is more like a precision stylus. It's much more sensitive, and as such you can go from thin lines to thick lines with incredibly smooth results. However, the pen tip does retract and it's not as intuitive as Apple Pencil. It's like a high-performance car that takes a bit of time to get used to, but if you're aware of this and learn about its intricacies, you'll be able to get much more precise, professional-grade results in the long run. I don't own the very large screen Cintiq 27Q HD, but I'm under the impression that if you're mostly working at home, that you really ought to just get the biggest screen that you can afford. Being able to bring the 16-inch of device out on trips with you probably would be convenient, but if you work 8 hours a day on your art, I think a larger screen would be better for your back. If you actually prefer the flexibility of working in cafes or maybe on the sofa, then yeah, the MobileStudio Pro is ideal. Just be realistic about how often you'll actually be away from your desk. I've never tested the Surface Studio. I've used Surface Pro 2, Surface Pro 3, Surface Pro 4. I've tested a bit on Surface Book, but from what I've seen, the stylus still makes too many compromises on the Surface products that I'm sure most professionals won't be happy about. If you're a hobbyist and you like the idea of a huge pen display computer for your family to muck about with, then yes, Surface Studio seems like a really cool solution. But I'm fairly certain most people who do art for a living would prefer the flexibility of building a high-performance, upgradable tower PC and connecting it to a Cintiq, or maybe even just hooking it up to a MacBook. Will it replace my iPad Pro? Well, truth be told, I don't think it will. Yes, I'll be doing most of my illustration and comic work on the MobileStudio Pro, but that won't change the fact that I love sketching and drawing just for fun, and the iPad Pro 9.7-inch is still much lighter, much smaller, and the Apple Pencil is a real delight to draw with. The technology just disappears and you're left alone with nothing but your art. but I'm certain that all my uploads to Instagram and art websites will still be done from start to finish on my MobileStudio Pro, because I feel like then I have no excuse but to make them as highly polished works as I can. When you have a device that really makes so few compromises, the rest is up to you. That's all for now. Thanks for watching this video. Do subscribe, as I'll be posting a review of the MobileStudio Pro after I've had more time to push it to its limit. I have a number of other videos already online that you can check out in the meantime, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. If you find these videos helpful, give this one a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next NihongoGamer video.